For thousands of years, far beyond the stars that humans could see, there existed an ancient armada. It floated in the dark space between galaxies, silent, enormous, and patient. These beings had once ruled the heavens, but long ago they stopped fighting wars. They had seen too many civilizations rise, destroy themselves, and fade into dust. So they chose to only watch. They believed no new species could surprise them anymore. They thought they had seen everything the universe could create. Their ships were old but perfect, massive rings of metal that shimmered like silver moons. Each one carried knowledge older than most galaxies. Inside these ships lived creatures of pure intelligence, their forms hidden behind layers of light and energy. They no longer needed to speak. Their thoughts flowed through the network of their ships like calm waves. They called themselves the Watchers of the Void. For ages, their mission was simple: to observe and record the history of other civilizations, not to interfere. Their eyes were everywhere. They had witnessed worlds burn, oceans freeze, and stars collapse. They had seen races reach greatness and then vanish after one mistake. And yet, in all this time, they never felt fear. Nothing in the galaxy had been able to make them doubt their place, until they turned their attention to one small blue planet circling an average yellow star. At first, they ignored it. The planet was too young, too noisy, too unstable. Its creatures were violent, divided, and chaotic. The Watchers had marked it as primitive life, another world that would one day destroy itself. They moved on, focusing their sensors elsewhere. But centuries passed and strange signals began to rise from that blue world. Weak at first, radio waves filled with static and confusion. Then came clearer ones: voices, music, patterns of thought, and numbers. The Watchers listened out of curiosity. The creatures called themselves humans. They were messy, emotional, unpredictable, but clever. In only a few hundred years, they had built machines that could reach the edges of their small solar system. To the Watchers, that was remarkable. They had seen countless races take millions of years to leave their planets, but these humans were fast, reckless, and driven by something strange: a hunger to go beyond. It wasn't logic or balance that pushed them. It was curiosity, even obsession. They wanted to touch the stars, not because they had to, but because they couldn't stop themselves. The more the aliens observed, the more they felt something they hadn't experienced before: uncertainty. Humans were not following any predictable path. Their history was filled with destruction and rebirth, cruelty and kindness all mixed together. One moment they were tearing each other apart, and the next they were sending messages of peace into space. The Watchers could not categorize them. They did not fit any pattern. When the aliens pointed their deep sensors toward Earth again after several centuries, they expected to find ruins, silence, or maybe a small surviving colony. But instead, what they saw stunned them. The planet was surrounded by lights, stations, habitats, and moving crafts. Massive rings of metal rotated above the atmosphere, glowing like halos. Humanity was no longer bound to its ground. They had become a spacefaring species. For the first time in their long existence, the Watchers felt something close to disbelief. Impossible, one of them thought. They were supposed to destroy themselves. The Armada increased its observation range. From their hidden posts at the edge of the solar system, they watched every move. Human ships were leaving the homeworld in waves. Some were mining asteroids, some were traveling to distant moons, and some, larger ones, were heading into the deep black, beyond the reach of any solar light. The Watchers analyzed human data transmissions, their languages, their art, and even their emotions. They learned that humans had united under a single global system, not perfect but stable enough to function. Wars were now rare, and people worked together to build enormous shipyards orbiting Earth. The aliens noted that human civilization had advanced faster than any species before it. Still, the Watchers believed humanity would soon reach a limit. There were dangers in the deeper void: radiation storms, unstable wormholes, and creatures beyond physical understanding. They assumed the humans would stop once they reached those barriers. But they didn't. Humanity continued to push forward. The first real shock came when alien sensors detected a massive construction project near the dark side of the moon. The readings were strange: energy levels too high, structure too vast. It wasn't a station or a colony. It was a ship. At first, the aliens thought it might be a transport carrier, maybe a research vessel. But as the structure grew, the data became undeniable. The ship was armed. It carried plasma arrays, railguns, and shield generators that matched the power of ancient alien warships. Humanity was building something meant for battle. The Watchers were confused. Who were they preparing to fight? There were no enemies near Earth. The galaxy had been quiet for thousands of years. Could it be that humans, like their ancestors in legend, were preparing for a war that didn't yet exist? The construction continued for decades, and finally the day came when the ship left its dock. The aliens observed silently as the vessel powered up. It glowed with the energy of fusion cores and experimental drives. The humans gave it a name, though the Watchers couldn't translate it exactly. Its meaning was clear. Leviathan. It was the largest ship ever built by human hands. Its hull was layered with reflective alloys that confused sensors, and its engines pulsed with light strong enough to bend gravity. The Watchers stared in awe. This was not the work of a young species anymore. Humanity had entered a new age. Inside the alien fleet, quiet thoughts passed among the command minds. They have reached the threshold, one said. They are becoming like we once were. But with that realization came unease. The Watchers remembered their own ancient wars, the destruction that followed their rise to power. They had seen countless others walk that same path and fall. The question now burned in their collective mind. Would humans survive the power they were creating or be consumed by it? Weeks later, alien sensors detected strange movements. The Leviathan left Earth orbit and entered deep space, testing new propulsion systems. It disappeared for hours, reappearing light years away. Humanity had cracked faster than light travel. That was the moment the Watchers knew there was no going back. The alien command decided to increase surveillance. They dispatched observation drones, small invisible probes, to follow human ships. They wanted to understand how far humans could go, but even as they observed, they began to feel something strange, a quiet dread growing among them. Each time humans made a discovery, they celebrated not with caution, but with excitement. Their emotions, their fire, their unending will, it was something the aliens could not comprehend. Most civilizations approached the unknown with fear. Humans approached it with open arms. The aliens began to argue among themselves. Some said humanity should be contacted and guided to prevent them from repeating the mistakes of the past. Others disagreed, warning that contact would change everything. Let them grow on their own, said one of the elders. They are dangerous even without knowing us. But deep inside, many of them knew the truth. Humanity had already changed the balance of the galaxy. The moment they built the Leviathan, they were no longer a small species. They were a force that could no longer be ignored. From their hidden fleet at the edge of the Milky Way, the Watchers continued to observe. On their vast screens, Earth looked peaceful. Clouds drifting across blue oceans, sunlight glinting on city domes. But in the silence of their command chambers, one thought echoed through the alien minds. What happens when humans realize they are not alone? For now, humanity was unaware of the eyes watching from the dark. They were focused on exploration, on testing the limits of their new creation. But fate was already moving. The first meeting between humans and the ancient Watchers was approaching, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Watchers, who had seen countless civilizations rise and vanish, had always believed they were beyond surprise. Yet as they gazed upon the humans, tiny, stubborn, unstoppable, they felt something they had long forgotten. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even hatred. It was fear. They had seen galaxies born, but they had never seen anything like humanity. The year was 3120. Humanity had finally done what once seemed impossible. For the first time in history, every nation on Earth stood together under one system. There were no more borders in space, no flags on the moon, no divided colonies on Mars. After centuries of conflict and struggle, humans had learned that surviving among the stars required unity. It hadn't been easy. The scars of the old world were still there. Polluted oceans, broken lands, memories of wars that had almost ended everything. But those same scars became a reminder of what humanity never wanted to repeat again. That lesson pushed people to cooperate, to share knowledge, and to dream bigger than ever before. Above Earth, massive stations floated like shining rings. They were so large that they could be seen from the surface, slowly turning, glittering in sunlight. These were the shipyards, the heart of a new age. From here, the great vessels of humankind were born. Cargo ships, science cruisers, and now something far greater. a battleship that could protect them as they explored deeper into the unknown. The ship was called Leviathan. Its name carried weight even before it was completed. People whispered about it in the streets and classrooms on digital screens. Some called it humanity's guardian. Others saw it as a warning, a reminder that even in peace humans still built weapons. But for most it was a symbol of pride. Inside the orbital shipyard, thousands of engineers worked tirelessly. They were ordinary people, men and women who had once built cars, airplanes, and space shuttles. Now they were building something no one had ever seen before. The Leviathan stretched for kilometers, its hull black and silver covered with plates that shimmered like starlight. Each section was designed to survive the worst conditions space could offer. From the ground, people watched its construction with wonder. It felt like a dream coming to life, a moment that proved humanity could do anything when united. Children pointed to the sky, adults recorded every milestone, and old generations who had lived through chaos finally smiled with hope. When the engines were first activated, the entire planet trembled slightly. The sound was not like thunder, but a deep vibration that ran through the air. Every screen on Earth broadcast the test live. The ship's massive fusion cores lit up, creating a glow that could be seen even from the dark side of the planet. It was a sunrise in space, but behind all the celebration there were quiet worries. Some scientists wondered if humans were moving too fast. They remembered how many times great progress had turned into disaster. But humanity had changed. They were cautious now. The Leviathan was not just a weapon, it was also a research vessel, a deep space explorer equipped with laboratories, observation decks, and communication systems that could reach across galaxies. Its mission was simple: to test the limits of human technology and prepare for what lay beyond known space. Many believed it was humanity's next step toward understanding the universe. As the final systems were installed, Earth's leaders gathered for the official launch ceremony. Billions watched as the captain stood before the ship's glowing hull. The speech was brief but powerful. He said humanity had learned to survive storms, famine, and wars, and now it was time to learn how to survive the galaxy itself. His final words echoed across every channel. "We are not alone in the dark, and we will not fear it." Those words reached even the outer edges of the solar system. They were meant to inspire humans, but far beyond, something else was listening. The ancient alien Armada, hidden among cold stars, intercepted the transmission. Their scanners watched the Leviathan as it rose from the shipyard and began its first voyage. From their perspective, this moment was impossible. A species that had discovered interstellar travel only a short while ago had just launched a warship that could challenge even their older designs. The aliens watched closely, their minds connected through silent thoughts. "They are ready," one of them said. Another answered, "They are dangerous." But humanity knew nothing about the Watchers. The crew of the Leviathan went about their work, filled with excitement and pride. For them, this was history in motion. Some of them had left families on Earth, promising to return with stories of new worlds. Others had spent their entire lives studying space, and this was their chance to finally see it up close. As the ship drifted away from the planet, Earth grew smaller and smaller behind them, a glowing blue marble hanging in blackness. Every person on board felt the same silent thought. They were no longer just citizens of Earth. They were representatives of humankind. The first part of the mission was to test the ship's systems. They moved between the outer planets, studying energy fields and testing new propulsion drives. Everything worked perfectly. The engines were faster than predicted, and the shields held strong against solar radiation. It seemed like nothing could go wrong. But deep inside the ship, a few officers started noticing unusual signals. They appeared for only seconds, tiny flickers on the radar that vanished as quickly as they came. At first, they blamed technical errors or cosmic interference, but the pattern kept repeating. What they didn't know was that those signals were not from nature. The alien observers had sent small probes to monitor the ship, invisible to the human eye. They wanted to learn how far humans had come, what they had built, and how they might react if they realized they were being watched. The Leviathan's crew continued their tests, unaware that their every move was being recorded from millions of kilometers away. They joked, they worked, they dreamed about the future. One of the engineers wrote in a report, "The silence of deep space is peaceful. For the first time, I feel that humanity belongs here." That peace wouldn't last long. Weeks passed, and the ship received orders to test its jump drive, a system designed to bend space and travel instantly across vast distances. It was the most dangerous part of the mission, but also the most exciting. When the countdown began, everyone held their breath. The drive activated, and in a blinding flash, the Leviathan disappeared. For a few seconds, it was gone from every human sensor. Even Earth lost contact. But then, light years away, it reappeared, alive, intact, and perfectly stable. Cheers erupted through the ship. They had done it. Humanity had conquered faster than light travel. Back on Earth, celebrations began again. Fireworks filled the skies, and people danced in the streets. Humanity had officially become an interstellar civilization. But none of them knew that their first step into deep space had already drawn attention from ancient eyes. In the far distance, the alien Armada adjusted their positions. They were silent, but their data screens glowed with new readings. Human technology had advanced faster than any known species before them. To the aliens, it was both fascinating and frightening. They began to debate what to do next. Some argued that humanity should be contacted, guided before they became too strong. Others warned that approaching them could trigger panic or conflict. They are unpredictable, one said. If we reveal ourselves, they may see us as a threat. For now, they decided to keep watching. Their fleet drifted quietly through the black, tracking the Leviathan's every move. On the human side, the crew celebrated their success, unaware that they were now part of something far larger than any of them understood. They planned their next test, deeper into unexplored regions beyond any mapped star systems. The excitement was high, but a quiet feeling of unease began to grow. Space felt too empty, too still. One of the navigators mentioned that he sometimes felt like something was looking back at them whenever they scanned the dark. His teammates laughed it off, saying it was just nerves. But he wasn't wrong. Out there, in that endless silence, invisible eyes were watching their every step. Humanity believed they had finally taken control of their destiny. But in truth, they had just entered a much larger story, one that had been unfolding long before humans even existed. The Leviathan moved on, its engines glowing against the endless night. Its crew looked forward to discovering new worlds, unaware that their discovery had already shaken the galaxy. Far beyond, the alien commanders continued to analyze. They could not decide whether to be amazed or afraid. For them, the young species from Earth had just crossed the most dangerous line of all, the line between curiosity and power. And deep down, they knew what always followed when a new power rose among the stars. But for humanity, that future was still unseen. For now, there was only pride, hope, and a silent universe ahead. They had no idea that soon their journey would lead them to the first true contact, and the first mistake that would change everything forever. The Leviathan drifted quietly through deep space, far from the familiar light of Earth's sun. Around it, the stars looked sharper, colder, almost alive. The vast emptiness felt endless yet beautiful in its silence. For the crew, this was everything they had trained for, the first true deep space mission in human history. Every reading, every scan, every sound was recorded carefully. Humanity was now far beyond its home system, traveling into places no one had ever seen before. At first, everything went perfectly. The new propulsion system worked smoothly, the ship's shields held strong, and the crew had settled into a comfortable rhythm. The reports sent back to Earth were filled with excitement and pride. Humanity had proven that it could travel across light years and return safely. But then something unexpected began to happen. It started with a faint echo in the ship's communication system. It wasn't a signal from Earth, and it didn't match any known natural pattern. It came and went like a heartbeat, steady, rhythmic, and strange. At first, the crew assumed it was interference from distant pulsars or debris fields. But as the days passed, the echo grew stronger. It seemed to be following them. The communications team ran test after test, trying to identify its source. Every time they thought they had isolated it, the signal would shift as if it knew it was being watched. That was impossible, or at least it should have been. One night, when the ship was gliding past a quiet nebula, the signal changed. It became clear, structured, almost intelligent. The crew gathered in the command center as the sound played through the speakers. It wasn't words, but it had rhythm like a code. The sound sent chills through the room. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone felt the same thought rising inside. What if it wasn't random? Back on Earth, scientists received the same data. Some said it was a strange cosmic pattern. Others believed it might be the first sign of intelligent life. The world watched closely as news spread. The Leviathan has detected an unknown signal beyond human space. But what no one on Earth knew was that the signal wasn't coming from far away. It was coming from nearby. Something was out there in the same region of space moving with them. The captain ordered a full scan of the surrounding area. The crew worked in silence, their eyes fixed on the glowing screens. At first, the scanner showed nothing but stars. Then slowly, a shape appeared, a faint blur at the edge of detection as if something enormous was cloaked in the darkness. It wasn't a rock or a comet or a natural object. It was symmetrical, metallic, and still. A chill spread through the room. "It's watching us," one of the crew members whispered. They sent a pulse of light toward the object, a harmless, coded message of greeting. It was the first official human attempt at contact beyond Earth. Everyone waited, hoping for a reply. Minutes passed, then hours. Just when they were about to give up, the signal changed again. The mysterious object had responded. The crew leaned closer as the new data came in. The response was strange, short, precise, like an acknowledgement. But before they could analyze it further, something unexpected happened. The entire object suddenly shifted position. It moved, not drifting, but turning deliberately. The scanners confirmed it. The object wasn't just a structure. It was a ship. Every alarm on the Leviathan went off. The bridge filled with flashing lights as the sensors detected new energy signatures. The unknown vessel was massive, almost twice the size of the Leviathan, moving with slow, deliberate grace. Its surface shimmered with lights that didn't belong to any human technology. The crew froze, unsure what to do. They didn't know whether it was friendly or hostile. Training had prepared them for many things, but not for this. The captain gave the order to maintain distance and hold position. The Leviathan's weapons remained offline. In the silence that followed, both ships faced each other across the void. The alien Armada, hidden far beyond the scene, observed quietly. The watchers had seen this moment coming. They had prepared for it for years, yet seeing it unfold felt unreal. They had studied countless civilizations, but none had ever reached this point so quickly. Humanity was standing face to face with the unknown, and they weren't afraid. The aliens inside the unknown vessel were not there to attack. Their mission was to observe, just like their ancestors had done for ages. But the moment the human ship detected them, everything began to change. As the two ships watched each other, the alien vessel released a small object, a drone, designed to gather information and send peaceful signals. It glowed faintly as it floated toward the Leviathan. The crew watched in awe. The object was beautiful, like a crystal sphere wrapped in light. It emitted soft waves of energy, harmless and calm. The humans thought it was a communication attempt. They began scanning it carefully, hoping to decode the message. But as the drone moved closer, one of the ship's defense systems automatically triggered. It wasn't an attack, just a safety response to protect the ship from unknown energy. A thin beam of electromagnetic light hit the drone. To the alien observers, it looked like an act of aggression. In an instant, the drone exploded, its light fading into darkness. The alien commanders reacted immediately. Their ship powered up defensive shields, and for the first time, the silent space between them filled with tension. On the Leviathan, panic broke out. The crew tried to explain the accident, but there was no way to communicate fast enough. The alien ship began to glow brighter. Energy readings spiked. "Are they charging weapons?" someone asked. Nobody answered. The next few moments felt endless. The humans held their breath, expecting an attack, but none came. The alien ship remained still, glowing like a silent warning. The Leviathan's systems recorded everything, every pulse, every frequency, every fragment of data. Finally, the alien ship moved. It turned slowly, its engines lighting up, and then it disappeared into the dark, faster than any human ship could follow. The scanners lost all trace of it. The crew stood in silence, staring at the empty screen. Nobody knew whether what had happened was a misunderstanding or a warning. But one thing was certain: the universe was not empty anymore. When the Leviathan transmitted its report back to Earth, the world changed overnight. Scientists, governments, and ordinary people all had the same question: who were they? The official report described the encounter carefully. It said the alien vessel had not attacked. but it had shown technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. It also confirmed that a small probe had been destroyed during a technical malfunction. The tone was calm, but between the lines everyone could feel the truth. Humanity had just met another intelligent species. For days, people everywhere could talk about nothing else. Some were afraid, some were excited, but deep inside humanity felt something else. Curiosity. They wanted to know more. They wanted to understand. Meanwhile, far beyond human space, the alien armada watched silently. They replayed the footage of the encounter again and again. The humans had reacted fast, maybe too fast, but they hadn't panicked. They hadn't run away. Even when faced with something beyond their understanding, they stood their ground. That disturbed the watchers more than anything else. For the first time in many millennia, they realized they had underestimated a young species. Humans were not just explorers, they were survivors. And survivors could become dangerous. Among the alien command, discussions began. Some wanted to retreat completely, to hide from humanity's eyes. Others believed they needed to understand humans better before making any decision. But all of them agreed on one thing. The humans were unlike any species they had ever observed. Back on the Leviathan, repairs and analysis continued. The crew tried to recover what little data they could from the destroyed drone. It wasn't much, but one fragment remained, a sequence of symbols, simple and repetitive, almost like a message. It wasn't a threat. It was a greeting. That realization spread through the ship like a cold wind. The aliens hadn't meant to fight. They had been reaching out. The accident had turned a moment of peace into a moment of fear. The crew sent a new message into space, repeating the symbols they had recovered. It was their way of saying, "We understand now. We didn't mean to harm you." But there was no reply. The alien vessel was gone and the silence returned. In the following weeks, the Leviathan began its return journey to Earth. The mission that had started with hope now carried the weight of something much larger. Humanity had entered a universe full of intelligence and mystery, and though they had survived the first encounter, they knew it was only the beginning. On Earth, as people celebrated the Leviathan's safe return, the stars above seemed a little different, closer, more alive. Humanity had always dreamed of finding others among the stars. Now they had. But they also realized something else, somewhere out there. Those others were thinking about them too, and while humans looked to the sky with wonder, the watchers in the dark looked back with something they hadn't felt in ages: uneasy respect and a quiet sense of fear. The Leviathan was returning home, but the air inside the ship felt heavy. No one said it out loud, yet everyone knew something had changed. The crew had seen something that no human eyes had ever seen before. They had faced another intelligent species, and even though there had been no battle, the memory of that silent, glowing ship still haunted them. Every night, when the lights dimmed and the engines hummed softly through the halls, people found it hard to sleep. The image of that alien vessel, the way it turned, the way it moved, the moment it vanished, kept replaying in their minds. Some felt proud that humanity had made first contact. Others felt uneasy, as if they had awakened something far beyond their understanding. The captain ordered the data from the encounter to be reviewed carefully before reaching Earth. They wanted to make sure the report was clear. Humanity had not attacked by choice. It was a misunderstanding, a technical fault that caused an explosion. But deep down, the crew knew that no amount of explanation could erase the truth. The first meeting between humans and another civilization had ended in fear. The Leviathan approached Earth weeks later. The world was waiting. Every country, every station, every person with access to a screen tuned in to see the great ship return. As it entered orbit, its silver hull reflected sunlight across the oceans, and a cheer went up from every city below. Humanity had finally reached beyond its limits and come back alive. When the captain stepped onto the global broadcast, his voice was calm but steady. He spoke about the journey, the discoveries, the beauty of the stars, and the mystery of the universe. Then he paused. The world held its breath. He confirmed what everyone had already guessed. The Leviathan had encountered something not from Earth. The ship had exchanged signals with an unknown object, which later turned out to be a vessel of non-human origin. He said no hostile actions were taken by either side, and humanity would continue to pursue peace and understanding. Those words spread across the planet like wildfire. For days, the world was filled with awe and wonder. People felt small and powerful at the same time. They were no longer alone. But while humanity celebrated far beyond the edge of the solar system, the alien watchers were still discussing what they had witnessed. They had recorded everything: the human ship's movements, the explosion of the probe, the humans' reaction afterward. To them, it was not just a mistake, it was a message. One of the alien commanders replayed the moment the human ship fired its defensive beam. The humans had acted fast without hesitation. Their response had been automatic, almost instinctive. The commander thought, they are not afraid of danger. They face it head on. That realization unsettled the entire fleet. For countless ages, the Watchers had observed civilizations that grew slow, cautious, and predictable. But humans were different. They were bold, emotional, and unpredictable. They attacked when frightened, but reached out again when they understood. That mixture of aggression and compassion confused the aliens. It made them feel uncertain, even uneasy. Meetings were held among the alien council. Some argued that humanity could become a great ally if guided properly. Others warned that humans could one day become the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. They evolve too fast, one of them said. They build faster than they learn. But for now, the decision was simple. Continue observing. Do not engage. Watch from the shadows. Back on Earth, the Leviathan was docked in orbit for repairs. The damage from the encounter wasn't serious, but it was a reminder of how close things had come. The engineers worked day and night, carefully inspecting every system. They found fragments of the destroyed alien probe still embedded in the outer hull. The scientists studied them carefully, hoping to understand the technology. The material was unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't metal or crystal or any known element. It changed texture when touched by light. It responded faintly to energy, almost as if it were alive. The discovery amazed them. Some scientists believed the probe had been made from matter unknown to human science, a kind of living alloy that could repair itself. The findings were kept secret for now. Only a few high-ranking officials and researchers knew the full truth. The public received only a simplified explanation: that humanity had recovered non-terrestrial material during its mission. But among the crew of the Leviathan, whispers began to spread. Some said the alien ship hadn't left at all, that it was still out there, hidden beyond human sensors, watching. Others believed the aliens were afraid, just as humans were. One evening, as the ship orbited Earth, a small group of crew members gathered near the observation window. Below them, the planet glowed softly, white clouds over blue oceans. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, one of them said quietly, "If they're watching us, I hope they saw that we didn't mean harm." Another replied, "They probably saw everything, the good and the bad." The words hung in the air like a quiet truth. As weeks passed, Earth scientists worked to interpret the alien message that had been recorded before the probe was destroyed. It took time, but eventually a pattern began to appear. It wasn't language in the usual sense, it was a mathematical rhythm, repeating over and over. The scientists realized it was a greeting, a universal signal that meant peace. When the discovery was announced, people around the world felt a mix of relief and regret. Humanity's first encounter could have started with friendship. Instead, it ended in silence. But hope remained. Messages were sent into space again, repeating the alien symbols, this time with human responses woven in. There was no answer. The silence that followed was deep and heavy. Humanity waited for weeks, then months, scanning the stars for any sign of movement. Nothing came. Some began to think the aliens had decided to ignore them forever. Others believed they were simply waiting. But one thing was certain: Earth was no longer the same. Humanity had stepped into a much bigger world, and even if no one came back to speak to them, the stars would never feel empty again. Meanwhile, deep in the uncharted regions of the galaxy, the alien fleet gathered in their hidden stations. The commanders replayed the human transmissions. They analyzed every word, every tone, every mathematical symbol. The message was simple but powerful. It said, "We seek peace. We wish to learn." To the Watchers, those words meant more than they wanted to admit. It reminded them of their own past, of the time when they too had reached for the stars, full of curiosity and courage, before fear and war had turned them into silent observers. Humanity's message stirred something long buried inside them, yet the fear remained. If they are capable of such strength so early, one of the elders said. What will they become in 1,000 years? The younger ones among them disagreed. They could become what we failed to be. Maybe they deserve a chance, and so the debate continued across fleets, across worlds. Should they reveal themselves, or should they stay hidden? Should they help humanity grow or protect the galaxy from them? On Earth, the debate was no different. Leaders and scientists met in private, arguing about what the next step should be. Some wanted to send another mission, to seek out the alien ships and prove humanity's peaceful intentions. Others believed it was too dangerous. We don't know who they are, one leader said. And if they didn't reply, maybe they don't want to be found. But curiosity is something humanity has never been able to silence. Plans for a second deep space mission began quietly. This time the ship would carry more advanced sensors, more powerful engines, and a team trained not just in science, but in diplomacy. Humanity didn't want another misunderstanding. They wanted to show that they could be trusted. The Leviathan's crew members were among the first to volunteer. They had seen the unknown once, and they wanted to see it again, not out of fear but out of hope. On the night before the ship's systems were shut down for upgrades, one of the crew looked out into space. The stars shimmered softly beyond the glass. Somewhere out there, he whispered, someone's watching. Maybe they're wondering about us the same way we're wondering about them. And in a distant corner of the galaxy, among endless darkness, the alien fleet hovered silently. Their sensors were still locked on Earth. Their commanders watched the humans preparing for another mission. One of them said quietly, "They are coming again." Another replied, "Let them. We must see what they become." The Watchers, who had once believed they were the only true masters of the stars, now felt something unfamiliar, a mix of respect and unease. The humans had touched something powerful, something the galaxy had long forgotten: courage without fear. And as the alien armada drifted through the black sea of space, one thought echoed through their minds like a quiet warning: the next meeting will not be by accident. Months had passed since the Leviathan returned home, but the echoes of its journey still filled every conversation on Earth. The stars had never seemed closer, nor more mysterious. Across continents, people looked up at the night sky differently now. They no longer saw quiet dots of light, they saw the unknown. They saw watchers, perhaps listening, perhaps waiting. The world governments came together to discuss what to do next. It wasn't just about exploration anymore. It was about reputation, about trust, about survival. The discovery of alien life had changed everything. For the first time, nations that had competed for power began to share information. Scientists, soldiers, and engineers worked side by side under one mission: to prepare humanity's next step. In a heavily secured space complex, deep underground, the second great ship was being built. It was larger, stronger, and more advanced than the Leviathan. Its engines could cross the solar system in weeks instead of months, and its armor could withstand radiation, debris, even weapons, if it came to that. But its most powerful feature wasn't its technology. It was its purpose. This ship wasn't made for war. It was made for understanding. The plan was simple: to retrace the Leviathan's journey and find the same region where the first contact happened. This time the crew would carry messages of peace in hundreds of languages, mathematical symbols and visual signs. They even packed music, soft notes and melodies meant to show emotion, something no machine could fake. But even as construction continued, doubt began to grow among some of the team. What if the aliens didn't want to talk? What if they saw the return of a human ship as an act of aggression? A quiet tension filled the project. There were scientists who believed that the aliens were waiting for this, waiting to see if humans would reach out again or hide in fear. Others warned that humans might be walking into a trap. Still, the mission continued. Humanity had always been driven by curiosity, even when it was dangerous. When the day of launch finally came, the whole world watched again. The new ship, Aurora, stood tall under the sunlight, its metal surface gleaming like liquid silver. The engines rumbled softly, and inside the crew prepared for what they knew could be a one-way journey. As the countdown began, the world fell silent. When the engines roared to life and the Aurora rose slowly into the sky, people felt something deep in their chests, a mix of pride and fear. Humanity was stepping into the unknown once again, but this time, not as explorers, not as conquerors, but as seekers of truth. The journey through space was long but smoother than before. The Aurora was faster and more stable. The crew passed the Moon, Mars, and Jupiter, leaving behind the comfort of human communication. After several weeks, they reached the dark stretch of space where the Leviathan had once made contact. At first, there was nothing, only silence. The blackness around them was endless, broken only by distant stars. They waited for days, sending out signals, pulses of light, mathematical patterns, and peaceful greetings. Then one day, something answered. It started as a faint echo, a ripple in the ship's sensors too regular to be random. The communication officers quickly adjusted their systems. The signals grew stronger, forming a rhythm that felt alive. Everyone froze. It wasn't a natural pattern. Someone or something was replying. The Aurora's captain ordered all systems to record. "Keep everything steady," he said quietly. "No sudden moves." Minutes passed, and then a faint glow appeared far ahead. The crew watched in silence as a massive structure came into view, drifting slowly across the stars. It wasn't a ship in the human sense, it was something else entirely. Its shape was fluid, like it was woven from light and shadow, changing as it moved. Everyone stared, speechless. The alien structure was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The captain ordered a transmission of peace signals. The Aurora's lights flickered in coded patterns, its transmitters sending greetings across all known frequencies. For a long time, there was no response. Then a beam of soft blue light stretched out from the alien structure, touching the hull of the Aurora. The sensors went wild. Energy readings spiked, systems flickered, but the ship remained intact. The crew held their breath. The light pulsed again, this time in a pattern that matched one of the human signals. It was a reply. The bridge erupted in emotion. Some cried. Some just stared, unable to believe it. Humanity had done it. They had made true contact. The captain recorded a message. "To whoever is out there, we come in peace. We mean no harm. We wish to learn, to understand, and to share." The alien light pulsed faster, as if thinking. Then, to everyone's shock, the message came back, not as sound but as vibration. The words appeared on their main screen, written in imperfect human letters. "We see you. We hear you. You have come again." The room fell silent. The aliens had learned human language, or at least they were trying to. It was more than anyone had hoped for. The conversation that followed was slow and careful. The aliens communicated through light, translating their patterns into rough human symbols. They said they had watched humans for a long time. They had seen the wars, the progress, the beauty, and the destruction. They had wanted to understand humanity before showing themselves. One of the alien messages said, "You fear what you do not know, but you also reach for it. That is why we watch." The humans were stunned. It was as if the aliens understood them better than they understood themselves. The captain replied, "We do fear the unknown. But fear is part of learning. We want to change that." The alien's next message appeared. "Then you are ready to see." Before anyone could react, the alien structure emitted a wave of light that filled every screen and window on the ship. The crew felt no pain, but the sensation was strange, like time itself had slowed. Images flashed before their eyes, galaxies being born, civilizations rising and falling, planets turning to dust, stars dying. They saw the aliens past, a once great civilization that had nearly destroyed itself in war. The survivors had left their worlds behind and chosen a life of silence, wandering the stars as watchers. They had vowed never to interfere again, fearing that contact only led to chaos. But then they found Earth, and for the first time in ages, they saw something familiar, hope mixed with danger. When the light faded, the humans stood quietly. They now understood. The Watchers weren't gods or conquerors. They were survivors, afraid of repeating their past mistakes. The captain sent his final message. "We understand. We will not repeat your mistakes. But if we are to learn, we must not hide from the stars." For a long moment, there was no response. Then the alien message appeared one last time. "Then walk among them. But remember, the stars listen." The light around the alien structure dimmed, and slowly, it began to fade until it vanished completely. The sensors picked up no trace. The crew was left staring at the empty space where the Watchers had been. Back on Earth, the Aurora's transmission caused a wave of emotion. People cried in streets, prayed in temples, and sang songs of unity. For the first time in human history, the entire planet felt connected, not just to each other but to something beyond themselves. But hidden within the data the Aurora sent back was one final, unsettling signal. It came after the alien ship vanished, a faint pulse repeating every few minutes coming from deep space. It wasn't part of any human transmission. When decoded, it read, "We are not the only ones." The message sent chills through everyone who read it. If the Watchers weren't alone, then who else was out there? In command centers and research stations across the planet, humanity began to prepare once again. The truth was clear now. The universe was full of eyes, and not all of them might be as peaceful as the ones they had met. But this time, humanity wasn't afraid. They had seen the Watchers. They had spoken to them. And they had survived. The Aurora's captain looked out into the darkness one last time before setting course back home. The stars looked different now, not distant but alive. Each one seemed to whisper softly in the silence of space. And somewhere far away, unseen and unknown, something else whispered back. The Aurora drifted silently through the darkness, its engines quiet, its crew still lost in the weight of what had just happened. They had spoken to beings older than anything humanity had ever known, beings who had seen galaxies rise and fall. But their last message still echoed in everyone's mind. We are not the only ones. Those words carried a strange feeling. They were both a warning and a mystery. If the Watchers were not alone, then who else was out there? And why had they sent that message at the very end, just before disappearing? The captain stood at the viewing window, staring into the endless dark. He didn't speak for a long time. No one did. The crew worked quietly, their faces reflecting both awe and worry. They all knew this mission had changed everything. As Aurora turned for home, Earth waited with hope and fear mixed together. News of the contact had already spread across the planet. People filled the streets, holding up signs of peace, lighting candles, and watching the stars every night. Humanity felt united in a way it hadn't in centuries. The idea that something was out there had made all the old conflicts seem smaller. But deep inside the governments and science centers, a quiet panic was growing. The alien message was being studied again and again. Experts from every country worked to decode the final transmission. Some believed it meant there were other species out there, more advanced than even the Watchers. Others thought it was a warning. Maybe those other beings were dangerous. In the weeks that followed, strange things began to happen. The first signs were faint. Radio observatories across the world picked up signals that didn't match any known pattern. At first, people thought they were echoes of the Aurora's transmissions bouncing through deep space. But then the signals changed. They started forming repeating pulses like a heartbeat. The pattern was coming from beyond the solar system. The world fell silent again. Scientists checked and rechecked their data. There was no mistake. Something else was out there, and it was watching too. Inside the Aurora, the crew received updates from Earth as they made their way home. The new signals worried everyone. Were these the others the Watchers had mentioned? Were they friendly? Or were they something else entirely? The ship's engineer sat quietly one evening, looking out the window. "We went looking for peace," he said softly. "Maybe peace found us first, or maybe something else did." No one replied. After many weeks of travel, the Aurora finally reached Earth. As it entered orbit, the world cheered once more. Humanity had spoken to the stars and returned alive. But the cheers didn't last long. The governments announced the discovery of the new signals. They explained that they were studying them, but no one knew their source yet. The Aurora's crew was placed under debriefing. They were asked to describe every detail of the alien encounter, every sound, every light. They told the story again and again, how the alien structure appeared, how it communicated, how it vanished. But the part that haunted everyone was the end. The message. The warning. One of the researchers on Earth, an elderly linguist, spent days studying the Watcher's final words. He believed the message wasn't just a warning, it was an invitation. "They wanted us to be ready," he said. "They wanted us to see what's coming." Weeks turned into months. The strange signals kept coming, growing stronger each time. And then one day something extraordinary happened. An enormous object appeared near the edge of the solar system. It wasn't like the Watcher's light-based structure. This one was dark, sharp, and metallic. It didn't drift, it moved with purpose. Slowly, steadily, it approached. Earth's defense systems went on full alert. Satellites tracked it. Telescopes captured its every move. It was massive, larger than any human ship ever built. No one knew if it was a ship or something else. The world waited again. People gathered outside, watching the sky, praying, hoping, fearing. Finally, the object stopped near Neptune. It didn't send any signals. It didn't respond to any of Earth's messages. It just waited. Inside command centers, leaders argued. Some wanted to send a message of peace. Others wanted to prepare weapons just in case. Humanity had reached the stars, but they were still afraid of the dark. The Aurora's captain was called to speak before the Global Council. He stood before the screens, tired but calm. When we met the Watchers, he said, they didn't speak first. They watched us. They waited to see what kind of beings we were. I believe whoever is out there now is doing the same. We must not repeat the mistakes of fear. After long debate, Earth agreed to send a peaceful message once again: music, lights, and symbols of greeting. For several days, nothing happened. The object near Neptune remained still. Then, just as hope began to fade, it moved. A thin beam of golden light extended from it, aimed directly toward Earth. It wasn't an attack. It was a transmission. The beam carried a single symbol, different from the Watcher's language, yet strangely familiar. When scientists analyzed it, they realized it matched patterns found in ancient human signals sent into space centuries ago, messages humanity had sent long before the Leviathan ever left. Earth, someone or something had received humanity's oldest call, and now they were answering. The world watched as the message unfolded on screens. It said, in perfect translation, "We heard your song. You are not alone. We come to see." The meaning was clear. They were coming closer. The skies over Earth filled with tension. People stayed awake at night, staring upward, waiting for something, anything to happen. The governments kept sending replies, assuring peace, offering welcome. But deep down, everyone felt the same nervous flutter in their hearts. Humanity had reached out to the universe, and the universe was reaching back. Days passed. The object moved slowly inward, passing Neptune, then Uranus. The closer it came, the more scientists realized how enormous it was, almost like a city drifting through space. Finally, it stopped again, just beyond Saturn. Then, all across the solar system, human satellites went offline. Power grids flickered. Communications began to fail. Fear spread quickly, and then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stabilized. The lights returned. The systems rebooted, and a signal came through, this time on every channel, every screen, every frequency on Earth. The voice was deep and calm. It spoke in human language, but with an accent that sounded not of this world. "Children of Earth," it said, "we have watched you grow. You are brave and curious, but you walk paths that we once walked and nearly destroyed ourselves upon. The Watchers warned you, and now we come to see if you have learned." People across the planet listened in silence. The voice continued, "We are not enemies. We are the keepers of the balance. Your world is young and your reach is fast. You must choose your future with care. What you do next will shape not just your world, but many." Then, the voice faded, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than before. For hours, the world tried to understand what had just happened. Who were these beings? Were they allies of the Watchers or something even older? No one knew. But one thing was clear. Humanity was no longer just a small species on a blue planet. They had become part of something vast and ancient. In the days that followed, the massive ship near Saturn stayed still. It didn't threaten, it didn't demand, it only watched. Just like the Watchers before it, the Aurora's captain sent one final message into the void. "We hear you. We will learn. But know this, we will not stop reaching for the stars." The message left Earth, carried on invisible waves of light. And somewhere in the darkness, the alien Watchers received it. They said nothing, but a quiet understanding passed between them. Humanity had changed. They were no longer just explorers, they were now part of the story of the universe itself. And so, as the Earth turned slowly under the starlight, people looked up once again. The fear had not disappeared, but something stronger had taken its place. Hope. Because even in the face of the unknown, humanity had done what it always did best. It had looked up, reached out, and dared to speak to the stars. The watchers across galaxies observed in silence. The great fleets that once ruled the cosmos whispered among themselves. The humans had declared something without even realizing it. Not war, not peace, but a promise. The promise that no matter how vast or terrifying the universe became, humanity would keep searching, learning, and dreaming. And somewhere, deep among the stars, a soft voice echoed, a voice not human, not machine, but something eternal. "They have begun," it said. "The age of humans among the stars has begun."